Wow, this is impressive. I have to say, GSV has done a great job on starting a new conference. So I wanted to start with this quote that kind of really speaks to me, and it's about dream is not that which you see while you're sleeping. It's the thing that does not let you sleep. And it's a quote by the Indian president, past Indian president, Dr. Abdul Kalam. And it's really got me thinking. For the last 15 years, and maybe even more, I've been dreaming about education, children, and how I can help children do better. I was a molecular biologist, and I had 4 kids, and I needed to stop being around radioactivity. So I said, what could I do next? 4 kids, right? I had to move into education. And what's the best thing I could do? I found a school. I don't know if you know the Nueva School in near Hillsborough. You know. So that school, they asked, my kids were going there, and they asked me to be the head of the education committee. Wow, that was the best lift I got, because it made me think about what is learning and teaching, because they go hand in hand. So with that in mind, I promise you I could not sleep. That dream kept nagging me. How can I help every child get the kind of education my children did? And so guess what I did next? I went to get an education degree at the age of 50. Don't ask me how old I am. Come and ask me personally, I'll tell you. But it is about that. It is about that nagging dream that keeps you going, and you kind of have to help. I feel like we're all here pothole fillers. Life brings, education brings, no matter what happens, there are always potholes that are created. And those are the potholes that kind of, if they get filled by us or get filled by somebody that helps us, we can move forward. But if we don't, that becomes a lifelong issue. So this conference is all about AI. But I ask you a different question. And that question is, must we choose between teachers and algorithms? We had to choose between horse carriage-drawn carriages, and we had to choose between cars. Now, each one of them created unintended consequences. Horse shit on the roads. In the 1800s, there's a picture of New York Fifth Avenue where it's this deep in horse shit. From few to 15,000 horse-drawn carriages. Then along come cars. And now you know the issue about those, the climate issues. So why are we doing this? Why do we need to decide, is it going to be calculators, or is it going to be pen and pencil? Is it going to be teachers, or is it going to be algorithms or AI? So let's break this down to numbers, right? So when you think about this, an average week of a teacher is about 50 hours. 50 hours. I mean, that's 10 hours a day. Or maybe, you know, divided by 5. Anyone can divide 40 by 5 here? You have calculators? Okay, never mind. So that's a lot of hours. So when you think about this, 10.5 hours of those go to the preparation of a teacher. Okay, that's not, think about that, even 5 or 7 days a week, that's more than 2 hours that they need to spend on preparation. Think about 6.5 hours on evaluation and feedback. Think about 3 hours of professional development, which we find doesn't necessarily do anything for all of them. We think about 5 hours of administration work, which they shouldn't have to do. We think about student coaching and advisement, 4.5 hours. When you think about behavior, social emotional behaviors, and babysitting and everything else, lunchtime, monitors. Think about all the stuff that's happening in a school. That's 3.5 hours. Doesn't sound like much, but when you add it up, you only get 16.5 hours a week. That's 16.5 divided by 5. That's little more than 3 hours a day in front of the students. It's less than 50% of their time. So I too believe that online learning is a way to support the teachers. I don't believe the teachers need to be left out. We need to make sure that the teachers are supported by what we are offering them, as much as we've been doing so with pen and paper, labs and calculators, et cetera, et cetera. Think about technology is supposed to help us, but we always say, no, it's a bad thing. So let's think about, why is it a bad thing? It's a bad thing when the solutions are just wrapped around things like LLMs, chatbots, and the chatbots are driving all the knowledge. That is the bad thing. And there are many. Recently, I saw this diagram. It was started by Lawrence Holt. And one of the things he did was he broke down. If you Google Lawrence Holt on Google, an article, you'll get this article. He broke this down into, the yellows are the categories. Between when, ChatGPT was made available to January, he found 91 new AI-based applications. 91. I haven't talked to him recently to see what's the update is. I bet you it's out of this roof. And he hasn't updated it, but, go look at his, paper and you'll see. So what do we need, right? What do we really need? Some of the stuff I have told you should give you some indication of what we need. So we think about teachers and algorithms, teachers and now AI. Why I say algorithm is because it is all about application of these things, large language neural networks. We've been doing a lot of that work for the last 15 years. And it's about proactive intervention, not just intervention. You've got to know where you're interventing. You've got to know, can we help a student in every moment of their life when they need it? I'm not saying make them cheat, make them, give them the answers. Even if they use ChatGPT, do you know how much prompting needs to be done? I was watching my team prompting over the last year. They were writing essays. It wasn't just a simple, I do simple prompting, to be honest, but I don't get good answers. But my team sat down and did deep. And if the student knows that much, we need engagement. That's been the biggest problem with education, the engagement, right? And how do we get that? It isn't going to be one thing that gives them engagement. There's going to be multiple things, and we have to kind of put those together. Better student outcomes. Now, we can argue about that. If you don't change the assessment system, how are you going to get any progress? That's out of my hand right now. Less teacher burnout. We can help with that. And Finally, the most important thing is personalizing at where the student is. These are very important things to note. So think about the students. That was for the teachers. Think about the students at this point. So what do students need? They're inside the classroom and they're outside the classroom, right? Think about them in these situations. And when you think about it, they've got all these books. If you look at both inside, outside, many of them have books, many of them do not. But the question becomes, can they go through these books, shuffling through these books to find the information, not just the knowledge, to understand what they need? So, personalization. So what if we were to explain to them, what does personalization mean to you? What is your career goal? What is it that you want to know? Do you want to be an engineer? You want to be a fashion designer? What do you want to know? How do you explain photosynthesis in terms of fashion design? So think of photosynthesis like a fashion designer creating a new outfit. The design of the plant takes raw materials like fabric and thread and buttons, sunlight, carbon dioxide, etc., right? Think about really getting to the student in their context. Education lacks that context. So strengthen comprehension. So think about what are alternative angles. So when a student asks what are alternative angles, do not think that's the answer. A big blob or text. What you need to make sure is that the student can see it in a visual way. Multimodality. The modality that each concept makes the best use of. So knowledge gaps. In space, there's no oxygen. How does the sun burn? These are actual student questions, by the way. And it's confusing for them because they're mixing up chemical and nuclear reaction. These questions, we get about 2 million questions from the students. Those are based on that. They're not just about give me the answer so I can fill up my homework and get over it. It's more about engage them through conversation. The missing part was the chat bot that we didn't have to do this. We can now do proactive intervention for both the student and the teacher and the parent. So when you think about where there might be the skill level, we can give them foresight based on where they are and what might they get right or wrong. We can even give them insight. There'll be another conversation, 2 other presentations tomorrow. So if you want to know more, Laramie Spence and Miral Shah are going to present those. One is a workshop. Career goals. We need to be able to help them in their career goals, right? So that we can, there's a purpose for education. It isn't just about, just being able to spread things out like I had to do. So, and there are many, many more things that I will show you later in the next few slides. So we, as an example, I'm sure you're seeing there are others here, that Flexi is a holistic tutor. We need holistic, human-like tutors. We took what each human teacher does or a tutor does, we brought those characteristics, and we said we are going to be able to build each one of them in a different way. So one of the things we know that we need multimodality. Learning theory said, each student learns differently, but it's also more importantly, the modality you learn in that's more important. I learned physics in a text. I'm bad at physics even today. I couldn't visualize it. We have simulations on our website you can go to. We created everything. It is about pedagogy. There is something. You cannot teach physics to a toddler unless you do it at their level, in context at their level. And general purpose LLMs don't do that. They're just general purpose, right? And artificial intelligence has a long ways to come to where we need it. Should we, this is a question to all of you, should we then leave the students that are going through the system with an imperfect system? What can we do that will really help every student go? One of the things in my dream was I was horrified even if one child didn't get the opportunity that they deserve. So student tutor, what is that? It's a safe and non-judgmental environment. It assesses student knowledge, which is about, we can do that through quizzes, through engagement, through conversation. Previously, the teacher used to have those conversations, and that knowledge was missing for online purposes. Now we can actually really kind of pinpoint through deep knowledge tracing where the student state of knowledge is. We can also give them next activities based on that. Next activities are like guides, right? On their knowledge state, we can figure out what should their study plan be, what should their assignments look like, what should their tests look like, what is, the one thing that I find, even myself yesterday, I don't know who I was talking to, and I said, it's finally happened to me. I realized the importance of spaced repetition. I forget because I'm not doing it enough. That is why homework came along. It was spaced repetition. That's why these classes were made too. So you could keep adding to addition, subtraction, making it harder. It was all about spaced repetition. These are very important fundamental issues in learning. So supporting learning activities, right? Personalized pedagogy, problem solving, critical thinking, igniting curiosity, interests and hobbies, and higher ed. And I've spoken about some of these earlier. That is what they need to know. Why am I doing this? How can I do it? How can I learn better? And then finally, help students reflect. The one thing that we forget about, reflection, and I keep telling my team too, guys, put times in for reflection. 15 years, we tend to jump that stage or that step. We tend to say, I don't need to reflect. I know what the reflection is. If you don't reflect purposefully, they're going, what are your knowledge gaps? What are your misconceptions? What are your study habits? When I started CK-12, these are the kinds of things that we put into our content. We created flex books, right? So, of course, nothing is perfect. Cost is always an issue. But cost of what? What are we comparing cost to? Already kids have computers and they have connectivity. Why can't we just piggyback on those things and then make the system better? Current state of AI, I agree, it won't happen. But you have to make domain-specific tutors, not just AI-based tutors. So untethered implementation, it should not be just QA answering machine, because then what are we doing with their learnings? Which is exactly the same as taking exams today and saying, oh, you failed and you passed, but you don't know why you got an answer right or wrong 2 weeks later after you get your paper back. So lack of customization is a huge issue. Teachers try their best to do that. It's hard. With anywhere from 10 to 30 students, it's very hard to do that, guys. Professional development, the right kind of professional development. We've been doing professional development with PD, with our webinars, for the last 10 years. We built this system so that we could, have something meaningful. It took me 15, 16 years to get here. But the biggest challenge, which is what we were just talking about, is learner variability, the strengths and the needs, based on the current system they're in. In the current system, which is standardized, it is very hard to get everyone to understand because they come from different starting points. Second part, some system can adapt a little bit, but the most students that need adaptability and personalization is the third group. And you know, if you're a teacher, you know how many of your students need help. That's the curve we're talking about. We know this curve. So thank you. Oh, 0. Okay, thank you so much. Take a test ride at flexi.org airshow. And please, send feedback. We really want to help you.